Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Valley of the Judged. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me is my good brother here in the temple, the three-eyed master of dad jokes, good brother Joe.
Regret nothing, tighten up. Hi, everybody.
So, we are in that between seasons phase of the show. After wrapping up Far West last week, which I think looking back on it, the greatest strength of Far West is its setting, because even with my vast array of games that I have in my library, what Far West was doing, I can't think of many games that are doing something close. Not just
look at me, you're the expert here.
Yeah, but since we finished up that season, it is time for the in-between episode. Now, originally I was going to do this as a triple feature because I misunderstood the page count on both, and this is part of the reason why I don't like spread page PDFs. I prefer singles, because I like to look at the page count in a PDF reader and see how many pages something actually is. But with the ones that we were going to be covering originally, they were in spread formats. So the amount of pages that it actually is twice what it says in the PDF reader.
They lied.
Oh, and I know one might say, well, don't you have a spread variant of Legend Edition? Yes, I do, and that is going to be sunsetted. Mostly because I don't see the point in doing maintenance on two versions of the book when I'm fairly certain most people who have been picking up and reading through Legend Edition have been using the single page version.
Also, most PDF readers have a spread version anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they'll automatically take 2 pages and put them in spread mode for you.
Yeah. Well, on certain browsers, you have the option of doing an odds spreads or an even spreads. Because some pages you want to exclude the cover part of it for some PDFs. And even
because the cover isn't a page.
Mm-hmm. Or in some cases, you have it where the cover is much larger, and it kind of screws up reading, because it means you have to zoom in for everything else. I've had that happen a few times. So, because of that, one of the 3 entries that we were going to do had to get cut. And I had to cut one of the larger of the 3 that I had initially planned. So, I put it up to Joe. He picked which one he wanted to prefer, so the other one, that will just get put back into the cycle. And maybe that'll be revisited on a later episode.
You hear that? That's the sound of the bus driving by after Mildred threw me under it.
Oh, please! Why would I throw you under a bus when I could give you the Heihachi treatment?
Suplex me off a cliff face, like.
Throw you into a volcano.
That's the transition. Got it. I'm thinking like transition between stages. I'm terribly sorry.
But I mean, it was either that or do a coin flip, and I'd have rather gotten a second opinion first instead of just leaving it to RNGesus. But for the first one that we're going to be delving into, this is Challenger Deep, a Leviathan hunting RPG by Joe Rugendil, also known as Joel Happyhill. Full disclosure, I've talked with Joel quite a bit. I've covered 3 of his projects on this channel. Heaven plus Hell, Dawn, and Dollhouse. And
I swear, every time I hear Heaven plus Hell, it's Guilty Gear all over again.
Well, that was the point.
Glad I got the point.
But this is going to be a very light entry. The PDF says 9 pages, but remember, spread, so it's more like 18. So we first open up with a initial briefing. What Challenger Deep is, or sometimes referred to as CD.
Cool
It
down.
is it is based on monster hunting video games like Monster Hunter or God Eater. Um, I'd probably throw Wild Hearts in there as well, if only because Wild Hearts got a bum rap.
I'm gonna throw in Kingdom Death Monster, but probably less graphic.
Yeah. Uh, then again, to quote Blight, do you have any idea how little that narrows it down?
To be fair, Kingdom Death Monster does kind of set the bar for when it comes to graphic.
Mm-mm. But you are tasked with heading out in parties to track and hunt gigantic beasts, returning to your home base to gather yourself and prepare to do it again. Uh, You are a diver, an elite member of Hacksaw, the organization tasked with researching, hunting, and capturing leviathans, giant aquatic monsters who, if they surfaced in polite society, would cause untold destruction and destabilize the world at large. It's a heavy weight to bear, but you have help. Then it goes
So
into
do
what.
we pronounce the underscore? Like, why is it hack underscore saw?
I think that's just what they're doing with all of the title parts in the formatting. So I'm not much in the same way as you don't pronounce the cross in Hunter x Hunter.
I guess.
Uh, then it goes into what is a TTRPG. Uh, the role, the roles to play. The GM is referred to as the quartermaster. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
What you need, we're using just D6s. Uh,
We just can't get away from the D6 system.
mm-hmm. But then we go into a bit of the background. The year is 2010. Civilization has progressed little in the last 25 years. Wait, sorry, that's couldn't help myself. Earthquakes are decimating the world and the oceans are churning. The average person is giving their prayers and donations, but most don't know the true origins of these events. Wait, Pacific Rim, is that you?
Might be.
Uh, Deep beneath the ocean, the leaders of Hacksaw, a pan-national black operations group, are celebrating their 100th anniversary.
A 100-year-old pan-national black ops group.
Apparently,
This this organization has existed since 1910.
meaning
That is some story
they
right there.
predate the First World War.
Did the World Wars even happen? Let's find out.
Uh, the organization was created to explore the depths of the ocean, but a grave mistake led to the awakening of the first Leviathan, slumbering at the Challenger Deep, the spot in the ocean furthest from land both in length and depth. From that point, their responsibilities had changed to research and destroy any other Leviathans who woke in response to this event. And due to the pressure these beasts have put on Hacksaw, they've stagnated. There's no way to recoup from losses, take time to develop, or leave the sea. Every moment the divers had must be spent hunting, and this has left them stagnated, with the surface world far outpacing their technology.
Oh,
But in recent years, it's
interesting.
changed. Leviathan activity wavers, and according to sonar, the original has stopped all activity, something that hasn't happened since it first woke. It's been an amazing time of development for the organization, but that was 40 years ago, and some worry the cycle will repeat again. In the long sleep, the structure of Hacksaw has changed significantly. Before they had soldiers, researchers, and spiritualists, people served under authority and were sacrificed for the good of the world. Now, through the efforts of a new, eccentric leader, each member of Hacksaw is more of a generalist. They're athletes, mercenaries, quote-unquote divers. Each diver is handpicked by another veteran, scouted from communities on the surface based on the recruiter's values and priorities. Divers are meant to wear every hat they possibly can, all hunters, all researchers, and all spiritualists, with teams of divers dividing their work as they see fit.
Interesting.
Ah, and we have a nice little design of what I can assume is what a diver is commonly going to be bringing with them. Uh, so then we get to the basic resolution, which first off, making tests. When you're doing a test, you roll 2d6. You gain a net advantage if you have a knack that matches the test. If at least one die is a 1 or a 6, it's a success. If there are more 1s than 6s, it's a risky success. Otherwise, it's a failure and you're set back or take a cost. Tests can have advantage or disadvantage. If you have either, you roll the die pool an additional time and take the better result if you had advantage or the worse result if you had disadvantage. If you have both, they cancel each other out. So this isn't a roll an additional die and drop another kind of thing. You're rolling 4d6 instead of 2. When it comes to knacks, divers have a variety of knacks. These are things they're especially skilled in. When a diver has a knack that matches the test, they gain advantage. These include your clever knacks, fields of study and research expected for scholars and bureaucrats, your field knacks, skills and physical abilities used mostly while on the field, deployed on hunts and facing Leviathan, and your abyssal knacks, supernatural powers granted by the depths below. They can be used freely by divers with them, but each diver can take up to 2 of the 4 abyssal knacks. Then they give out the list of knacks for each. The clever and field knacks are about what you'd expect they are. The abyssal knacks are Lictas, add, reveal, or enhance with magic. Obscurias, take, hide, or weaken with magic. Dynamus, move or manipulate with magic. And Stagnatus, stop or immobilize with magic. I don't know why, but the abyssal knacks remind me of powers that, say, a biotic has in Mass Effect.
Just a bit.
But when it comes to, of course, there is the whole thing with failures and costs. In combat, the book should tell you what that is based on the kind of test you're taking, but outside combat, the quartermaster may have to improvise. An easy way to track costs and benefits is to create a gauge, which is a bar split into 5 segments. The quartermaster is meant to modify them by upping or lowering a gauge in response to tests taken by the players. If it would go past its 5th segment, it overflows and some cost or effect happens. This is basically a clock. Like the kind of clock you'd see in a Forged in the Dark game.
Fair enough.
The basic gauge is the stress gauge, which has 1 segment filled every time you fail a test unless it's seen as a safe test by the quartermaster, and is emptied when the diver ends a hunt. And then we have a few example costs, which these are almost wounds. If you're knocked away, you're removed from a scene for a bit. If you have an oxygen puncture, you create a gauge that's upped whenever you take a test. If it fills, you start drowning. Wound, if you're hurt, but in a way that could damage your suit. You have disadvantage on a knack of your choice for the next 5 tests, can be tracked on a gauge. Or abyssal corruption. Give a player a corruption token and roll 2d6. If the roll total is equal to or less than the player's corruption tokens, they lose control of their character and become a wight. Now, when it comes to your diver, your character is made of 2 parts, your diver sheet and your weapon sheet. Your diver sheet is made up of your past, a description of who you were before the diver business, and your branch, your responsibility as a diver. Both give you access to knacks. And each one has, I like that each one has a short list of suggested knacks for each past. Uh, you have a choice between 4 knacks, and you can choose 2 of them, adding them to your sheet. So past can be things like student, soldier, professional fighter, young diver, criminal, or conspiracy theorist. And the branch, which has that same 4 potential knacks, pick 2 of them. Medical, R&D, political, scouting, and spiritual. And again, I keep getting reminded of Pacific Rim, even if this isn't using Max. I mean, Pacific Rim didn't have abyssal magic, but there were religions built around the kaiju. Uh,
True.
but then when it comes to your activities, at the beginning of every hunt, or during any at-base intermissions the quartermaster describes, each diver can cut into some of their preparations before they start, describing what they're doing and gaining a benefit based on one of the following activities. As part of your past and branch, you can pick up to 4 activities. These are listed in the same 3 categories as knacks, clever, field, and abyssal, and for each of their knacks, the diver can pick an activity from the same category. You can only gain benefits from activities you've chosen. Knacks could be seen as like aspects, but because of this part here, they have a bit more identity. Like, for example, research. The first time you see a Leviathan in a hunt, you may make a statement about an out-of-combat weakness of it. When acting on that weakness, you have advantage. I do like that it ties naturally into the knacks that you would be picking from the previous page. Plus, this means that you have a whole phase dedicated to just preparing for combat. Which is a very nice touch. And same with field activities. You know, you have cook and sharpen. It is amusing that you that even deep in the ocean you still have your good old whetstones. But when it comes to the weapon, divers are all provided with a custom-made Leviathan blade. Giant weapons made for the destruction of Leviathans, most being large engine-powered melee weapons that propel themselves and their users through water. They come in 2 parts, the core and the business end, each providing a unique passive or active effect in combat. So the core seems to have a weight value as well. I'm sure we'll get to that in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. The Hunter Killer Mark III is a short handle that splits into 2 twinned arms, each braced a waist piece that holds its engine.
OMK unit, we can't get away from you.
So for those who love going demon mode in Monster Hunter, there you go. And the Jormungand Driver, a collapsible chassis that extends and expands to brace for its users when attacking at full force. Not sure what that would be the equivalent to. Let's see, the Witchcraft 7, which is clearly built for people who want to lean more into abyssal magic. The Vogan and Sons Mark I, a heavy and wide score strapped at both of its users' elbow and hand for use as a shield. Oh, so a bit of double shield fun. But then there's the business end, which is divided into ranged ends and melee ends. So for ranged ends, we have a aqua dynamic rifle. Uh, and now I see where the weight comes in. The weight is the 2d6 roll that you do normally, but depending on the weapon of choice, you might roll more or less. Like the Vogan Sons has a weight of 3d6, so that's what you'd roll there. Versus Hunter Killer and Jormungand Driver have 2d6. And the Stone Shear has 4d6. If you succeed with the Aqua Dynamic, you damage the target. If you fail, or if it was risky, this is unloaded and you can't attack until you spend 1 cure to reload. And then Spear Gun, because of course, if we're going to be underwater, of course we got to have a Spear Gun. A Tesla Coiler, which a coil rigged to a Leviathan Blade's core that turns energy into electrical arcs in the deep ocean. But on melee ends, we have the Fillet Razor, a standard blade. The Gore Grinder, an anti-armor saw blade. With its, of course, its attack being called Rip and Tear, because of course, until it is done. The Rocket Trident. Gunlance, anybody? And the
Really good though.
And the Ocher Divider, which I would like to ask you a question.
It slices, it dices, it even makes julienne fries.
But in combat, damage is dealt to characters by damaging their parts. For player characters, this is the parts of their weapon as described in the weapon creation section, and for Leviathans, they will be given 1 to 3 parts that each have their own abilities. When an ability deals damage to an undamaged part, it becomes damaged. When it does damage to a damaged part, it is destroyed. Destroyed parts have no abilities and cannot be damaged. When an ability repairs a part, it restores it to the previous state of damage, so destroyed to damaged and damaged to undamaged. When you have all destroyed...
Damage.
When you have all destroyed parts, you are defeated and removed from combat. At the end of combat, parts are repaired. In combat, both players and enemies will attack using some of their actions. Attacks share some properties, including targeting a single part, needing to spend a target token on that part for it targets for it to resolve, and normally damaging a part on a success, although these can be ignored if stated otherwise. Now, in order to damage or do much of anything in Challenger Deep, you need to manage tokens. These represent all form of advantage and positioning in combat, replacing the positioning and range that's the focus of many other tactical RPGs. Tokens are distributed to characters through actions and are spent later to get some kind of reward. And we have a few common examples of it. So target, applied to parts when a character can see or aim at a part, spent to make attacks. Enmity, when they're the focus of the Leviathan, spent on more powerful attacks. Threat, applied to players every round, must be spent with target to let a Leviathan attack. And some apply special tokens. Bruise can be spent as threat by the Leviathan. Rupture grants an equal amount of threat at the start of each round. Snare cannot target parts other than the snarer until damaged. Daze, when you roll, lose a Daze token and take disadvantage. Charge has no effect, is spent on other abilities on the Leviathan. And Speed can be spent when you receive any number of tokens to gain that many more or less. And when it comes to turn order, it is decided by round. At the start of each round after enmity is placed, each player rolls initiative using their weight dice. The player with the lowest total value among their dice can pick up all of their weight dice and take their turn. If more than one player picks up their dice here, they can either choose to roll initiative again or take a joint turn, where each player can take turns in any order they agree on. After this, the quartermaster must act as if one player turn had just ended. This repeats until there's no dice remaining. The round then ends and a new one starts. So we have aim low initiative. That's an interesting approach. When it comes to actions, you can take a prep action, an attack action, and a defense action, but only in that order. And of course, the Leviathan, instead of taking their own turns, when facing Leviathan, they take an action after every player turn. The type of impact they make with an action being based on if the player took an odd or even numbered turn. So at odd player number turns, the quartermaster can distribute 2 target tokens between the players and a number of threat tokens equal to the Leviathan's threat value. After even, the quartermaster can use each of the Leviathan's abilities once, consuming the number and type of tokens it describes.
Hmm.
Now when it comes to running Leviathans, Leviathans are made of 2 parts or more, where damage to the enemy is tracked by damaging those parts. This works, but unless a quartermaster is very careful to adjust the complexity of a Leviathan to match the number of players, they can be given a posture gauge to help aid that. When a Leviathan with a posture gauge would have a part damaged, it instead has one of its segments filled. If that fill would overflow, the attack carries over and damages the part targeted. It also stuns the Leviathan, preventing the Leviathan from moving for the next 2 or 1 if there are 4 or more players, turns. In addition to a Leviathan with or without a posture gauge, quartermasters can deploy Leviathans as a swarm. When choosing that, the quartermaster chooses 1 Leviathan to be the leader, and the rest become chaff. When taking Leviathan orders in a swarm encounter, all Leviathans act at once, able to spend each other's tokens and use their actions in any order. Only the leader or the highest threat among chaff, if there is no leader, has their threat dealt to divers on odd turns. All other chaff add 1 to that threat value. A bit of a typo there. Though the parts can be added up to create a kind of effective health. Now, of course, if they have a posture bar, their health is effectively multiplied by 2.5 times. And
My connection keeps dying. My goodness.
Then they go into some of the different potential Leviathans as well as making them. If it's a 3-pointed Leviathan, it has 4 threat and 1 part. If it's 4-pointed, 6 threat and 2 parts. If it's 5-pointed, 7 threat and 3 parts. And of course, each part is assigned 1 or 2 actions that are unique to the Leviathan, but there is a formula for creating them. It could be either a deadly attack, attacking a player with enmity, a status application, which is self-explanatory, a multi-target attack, where you attack players with a certain amount of threat, spending all of that threat to make a roll, or a basic attack. Though what I do notice is that there isn't really a... I was going to say there isn't a die roll here, but there technically is. It's just that it's for one, rolled simultaneously. And let me, because it is rolled based on threat value. So it's,
Do I exist?
yep.
Good, 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 good.
hmm But they do cover a kind of 3-act setup for running a hunt. Uh, setup, confrontation, and resolution. And that more or less covers Challenger Deep. So, what's your take on it?
You know, I it has charm. I I would want to run through it, but I always do enjoy these kind of like monster hunting games.
hmm There's definitely a lot that it's doing well. Uh, I think the only thing that bugged me a bit is not making clear how many exactly how many dice you're going to be using.
Mm,
As on the Leviathan side, I'm assuming it's based on on your choice of tokens, and real. I think the only thing that's going to be a stumbling point for some is the way tokens work. I know that
yeah.
there's the normal and special types. I think it'd be best to look at tokens kind of like lands in Magic. And I
Like
get what it is doing, but it's going to be
mhm.
one of those where the flow of how tokens work is going to take a little getting used to for some.
like again, I mentioned Kingdom Death Monster before. A lot of this is very par for the course for Kingdom Death. Like KDM is really like I wouldn't be surprised if this was actually like side rules for a KDM game. Just saying.
Yeah, given the amount of time this took, I doubt that is the case, but I can see where you're coming from.
Hmm.
And when it when it comes to the rest, this is I don't see this as something you'd run a lengthy campaign with. This is
No.
this is very clearly a beer and pretzels kind of affair.
Yeah. Like if it made a few things clear, like you were talking about, because I see that now,
hmm
then it would be easier to understand, especially when it comes to like how much health does a Leviathan have? How do you know you've won? And more importantly, what do they get upon completion? Do they get bits and pieces that they can use to make better weapons? Like what's going on here?
Yeah, this was given the time frame that this was made in, this is again a very beer and pretzels thing. This is something you do as a one-off. Uh, I do not see it as something I would run a multi-session campaign out of. I would likely run like uh one episode, and then that's it. Maybe shift it with somebody else with a different group. but
Mm.
I don't. But I would have a hard time seeing myself running it for a lengthy a a
Yeah.
a lengthy thing. Um, and could somebody hack this to do that? I mean, maybe, but you're gonna have your work cut out for you because you have to figure out a whole upgrade system, and I don't think this is built for that. And given the constraints that it was built under, because it was built as one of those as one of those challenge things. It was built for the minimalist TTRPG jam.
Hence the index card for your character.
Mm-hmm. Which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's a case of adjust expectations accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Now, with that said, we're gonna take a break for a couple minutes, and then jump straight uh, into covering Tipua. And I'm going to apologize in advance because I'm going to butcher a lot of pronunciation in the next hour.
You wouldn't be the only one.
So, see you in a couple minutes. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this project is not on DriveThru RPG just yet, but it did recently kickstart, and as somebody who backed, I did get the digital version. And this is another one where the page count on the PDF reader is not the actual page count, because it is a double-sider. But let me get that taken care of. Da, da. So, like I said, I'm going to screw up pronunciation quite a bit because obviously I don't speak the language. I've never even been to New Zealand. But as you can see, it's doing the page spread, which I'm not going to give negative marks if somebody does that. It's just not something I do personally. And what it unfortunately does not do is have a index, and also no bookmarks. So those are two things I will knock it for. And it's not like we're going to need to go through the whole thing because the latter third of the book is covering a adventure.
Fair enough.
So, opening up. They say this is a game of horror, adventure, and unraveling secrets where every choice echoes through the fabric of reality. Will you rise as defenders of the cosmos, or return to your ancestors in Rarohenga? Ngarara is the whisper in the void, the nightmare at the edge of knowing, the slips between realms, corrupting life and death alike. Only those who walk with the old ways, those who understand the sacred balance, can maintain the balance. But take heed, with every rite you invoke, with every breach of Tapu or sacrifice of Noah, the line between protector and destroyer blurs. The void watches, and Ngarara awaits. Beneath the ever-turning of Te Mangora, in the twin solar realms of Waiti and Waitia, something ancient stirs. You are a Pohatau, a cosmic soldier forged in the sacred rite of Wakapapa, keeper of ancestral wisdom, protector of balance. Trained in the ancient knowledge of the Ware Wanhanga, you and your vanguard are summoned to unravel a mystery. Find your commander and confront an enemy unlike any other, an entity of flesh and madness incarnate. And the first segment we have here is basically a lore chapter, going into the Protectors, the Guardianship, the House of Learning, the origin of Hine Urera, the origin of Mangopare, the setting and environment, and the origin of Kohau Nui. The Pohotau, or Elite Protectors, are essentially the PCs. And within the lore section, and I do apologize because I'm gonna screw up pronouncing everything. If they end up making a 1.1 of this, put in some kind of pronunciation guide just so I understand what vowels and consonants to use instead.
Yeah, I do kind of wish they did that in the beginning, or at least the first time you come across a lot of these words.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of There's a lot of unique terminology, and I'm not expecting them to do a pronunciation guide for all of it, but at least say a guide on how vowels and consonants might work. Uh, I've seen similar things in some Norse-themed RPGs that I've covered over the years.
Hmm. Like I do know that like with the line above it, it's a long sound of the vowel.
Hmm. But there are 5 sentient races they refer to as Ira. The Ira Tangata, human folk. The Ira Ponaturi, seal folk. The Ira Patpa Nare, the forest folk, and I definitely screwed that up. The Ora Manaya, the light serpent folk, and the Ora Hakutri, bird folk.
Oh, so that's a seal. Okay,
Mhm.
interesting.
And in addition to that, there's the first 5 Ware Wananga, who were created in response to the Second Battle of the Deities. To be chosen by any of them was an auspicious occasion. And what we have is Hine Ueroa, Mango Pare, who is missing his arm. Uh, then he's using the whole galaxy as a setting with Te Mangaroa, or Mangorora.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Wrong pipe.
Got it, got it, got it.
But it is interesting that we essentially have cosmic fantasy, while at the same time going a bit more local, like with Waroa, the island village.
Well, I tend to find that with a lot of seafaring cultures, uh, it's not just the sea and the islands, but also the stars which they use to guide themselves.
Hmm.
With large emphasis on needing to navigate by the stars, they tend to put a lot of emphasis on the stars when it comes to a lot of their legends and cosmology.
And we definitely see that here.
Hmm.
Uh, and along with several worlds that have their own have their own associated villages and the like. Each of them associated with one of the folk. Uh, and they do have some nice map work, I will say that.
Hmm.
Uh, Especially the description of the sacred wellspring. Like that is a really good design there.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Don't know why I said it like that.
mhm. But then the origin of Kohau Nui, uh,
Oh my gosh.
which says Kohau Nui is a renowned Tohunga, master fisher, and Ponaturi. Whilst returning from an expedition, he unknowingly ensnared Nagara in his net. Deciding to keep this larval creature as a pet, Kohau Nui nurtures Nagara with unwavering care, feeding and raising him with love. Under his guidance, the creature grows in size and intelligence. However, as a child of Wiro, Nagara's nature slowly begins to corrupt the Tohunga. At 350 years, age weakens Kohau Nui's body, leaving him unable to fish. Desperate to sustain Nagara, who's now a colossal leviathan, he turns to his own people, exploiting his status to sacrifice members of his community. What began as an act of nourishment soon escalates to the sacrifice of Ponaturi, marking the ominous beginning of Karito's curse. Those who escape the beast's hunger are not spared. They succumb to a parasitic affliction, binding them to Nagara's emotions and driving them into uncontrollable fits of rage. Gohao Nui, able to resist the worst of this parasitic curse, has instead become afflicted with a deep madness, doing anything to keep his beloved friend alive. He certainly looks like it.
Yeah.
But then we get to character creation. Uh,
I do like the design of their character sheet.
mhm. Which is a pretty straightforward approach. Uh,
Hmm?
One where you could probably build a character pretty quickly in about 30 minutes.
Hmm. And yes, folks, that is quick.
Hmm. But you start with your identity, uh, which the way they describe it, it sounds like concept.
Hmm.
But after that, you choose your species, either human, sea folk, or forest folk.
I guess you can't be a bird folk, huh?
Hmm.
Interesting.
After that, you choose your origin, whether you grew up in a village, in a city, or in the outskirts. Your origin is linked to your species with three distinct options for each. Then your house of learning. Uh, through which house of learning did you acquire your skills? Then choosing your weapon, which path did you follow? And for each house of learning, there are two weapon choices, each providing a unique ultimate ability. And when I look at this skill setup that they've got here, as well as the stress system, what immediately comes to mind is Fate. However, it doesn't have the whole broad aspect thing that annoys the hell out of me with Fate.
Yeah.
So, once again, we're back to back with games that are drawing from Fate, but are clearly doing a better job. Funny how that
Yep.
works out.
Just a bit.
But after which you pick a stunt and skill modifiers, as well as your inherited ability, your origin ability, and your House of Learning specialization, and then give your character a name, obviously.
Obviously.
Oh, okay, this is weird that they have it that how they formatted this. You pick 10 skills. There are 16 skills to pick from. You have some level of proficiency with all 16 skills. You're just putting them in order, with the corresponding number being the base skill level for any skill checks. 4 are mastered skills, 3 are high skills, 2 are moderate skills, 1 are basic skills. The remaining 6 skills are rated at 0. So, once again, this is very reminiscent of the skill ladder that was in Fate.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but after that, they go into the 3 playable eras, first starting with human folk. So with the inherited abilities, you get one of the 2 listed here. Uh, each gives an additional stunt as well as modifiers to your sheet. So you can go with Ancestral Voice and get +2 to Intelligence, Kaiko Nero, and Matakite. And once per session, call on an Ancestor Spirit to reveal something hidden or help in battle for 1 turn. Or Ringatoi, Hand of the Maker, which gives +1 to Intelligence, Strength, Strike, and Craftsmanship, +2 to Matakite when interacting with carvings or built spaces, and once per session, you can use a pass down Karakia to imbue an object with a spell, either rolling Taku Taku +1 to imbue it with an aura of protection, or Makutu +1 to imbue it with an aura of destruction.
Interesting.
Mhm.
So +1 to defense or +1 to attack. Hmm.
Yep. So then, of course, there's the origin option. Like we mentioned, village, city center, or outskirts. Each one has a origin ability as well as a stunt and modifiers. Uh, and the three origin types have different results depending on which folk you pick. So it isn't a case where you're locked into a rating of 0 to 4 with skills. You're going to be getting modifiers from your place of origin as well as your folk. Uh, and we have the forest folk. Uh, and they either have ancestral voice, which once per session they can use to fully vanish or move to escape, but your Waira can still be tracked, or Wairura. Or Voice of Harmony, which once per session you can captivate one low-level NPC for a turn with your voice. They will do as you command. And then there's the Sea Folk, which is our that is a neat. I like that design there. Oh.
Mm-hmm. I like the design for both them and the forest folk.
Mm-hmm. There is a bit of a typo where this is the Sea Folk, but they reference the Forest Folk. Uh, but you can either pick Lives in Two Worlds, which once per session you can send a deep pulse through the water, knocking nearby enemies off balance, or Thick Skin. Let out a challenging growl that draws all attacks to you, taking only half damage for one turn. And keep in mind, your folk and your origin are going to be giving you skill modifiers. Some of them are a bit conditional, but they are skill modifiers nonetheless. And your House of Learning represents the Palace of Learning, or not the Palace, the Place of Learning, where you advance your abilities, honing your skill in weaponry and esoteric knowledge. It is here where you became Po Huatao, or Elite Protectors. Each one is open to any species. They grant a specialization reflecting your training, as well as one of two weapon options. The first one is Teware Taumata, which once per session you can unleash a Radiant Light. All allies gain +1 to Mental Fortitude and Taku skill checks, and all enemies suffer -1 to all rolls. And it looks like with the weapons, each weapon grants a ancient ability
Mm-hmm.
that encompasses the physical, mental, and spiritual. Using the ability costs 1 fate point. So, like with the first one, we have the Kotiate, which which is very much meant to strike at the. They talk about it striking at the torso with its effect, and the spiritual effect can wrench souls out of larger enemies, leaving them vulnerable. uh, or the um, Teowataiwa. Once again, I apologize for mispronouncing. Uh, which both of these feel like they wouldn't be too. If someone prefers an axe, these seem to be the kind of weapons that they would use.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and the uh, Mariri, the which has a deity with on the each of these has a deity on the female side and the male side. Interesting. Uh, you can you can perform a coordinated attack with an ally. Uh, and the weapons can either be T, a pair of blades, a pair of blades with serrated edges that may be laced with poisons, uh, or yes, one of my favorites, and one that I brought up when a while I remember a while back you had asked me about unusual martial arts or non-standard ones that I'd like to see in games, and I immediately thought of the Taiaha, which is well what this is. It is it is a spear with a flat bottom, so that it can be used as a short spear or a club. But then there's Ahunoe, uh, which its weapon is a ko, essentially a digging tool that's repurposed into a weapon, and is built for disarming and redirecting. And incidentally, the description of the weapons is something that could only be written by someone who has training in these, which I I do recall one of the people on staff having a background with traditional weapons. But then there's also the Timo Timo, which are a pair of hooks that are about getting somebody in close. But then there's the Pohu Tukawa, which seems to be about both life and death. And its particular weapons, one of them is the Mere Tuhua, a a shorthand obsidian bladed weapon. Uh, although I like the description that they have for it here. A cut so subtle, the enemy only realizes they have been slain moments later. And the other that we have is the Toki Kakaura, featuring a large obsidian a day's head bound to a solid hardwood haft. That is, for all intents and purposes, it's an obsidian great pick.
Yeah, it looks really good, and they definitely put a lot of work into this. I can't wait for it to come out proper.
Mm-hmm. Oh. But then there's Tahaura, which is tied to oceans and tides, nurturing speed, fluid movement, and emotional depth. And their particular weapons are the Hoeroa, a heavy blade carved from the bones of great ocean beasts. definitely looks like it's meant to be used in sweeps, which it does talk about using both sweeps and spinning throws.
Spinny throw.
Uh, which explains the rope at the end. That
Mm-hmm,
is
mm-hmm.
your spin to win.
Spin.
Mm-mm. Or the Wahaika, a a flat-bladed shorthand weapon which has a recurving hook to deflect enemy weapons and rip at flesh.
And or tear.
Mm-mm. But when it comes to these schools of learning, that's the closest thing we have here to a class. But each one is almost the choice of two fighting styles. And fate points are it's very clear that they are not meant to be acquired easy because a lot of the abilities are one-hit kills in this if you use a fate point. Uh, and those abilities are stunts, which they describe as analogous to feats or special moves in other RPGs. Uh, then when it comes to skills, we they have these skills divided into what looks like 4 categories: intrinsic, developed, um, further developed that represent the tapu, and arcane skills. So these, so we have our endurance, strength, agility, intelligence, charisma, stealth, linguist, naturalist, mental fortitude, spirit sight, strike, block, potions and poisons, craftsmanship, wards, and curses. Let's see,
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 skills total.
Yep. That's what they said.
Mm-hmm. And as mentioned before, the modifiers for skills is going to rank from 1 to 4. Though that 1 to 4 is the base amount. You're going to get modifiers from character creation.
Yep, yep, yep.
Which that does solve one issue I had with the skill ladder, which was how locked you were with it. Um, like I don't hate Fate as a system. I just think that on some levels it kind of gets in its own way, for lack of a better term.
Wouldn't be wrong.
Especially given how enthusiastic some of its adherents can be about narrative. Uh, but then we get to the GM reference. They talk about the fact that this is using the Fate system as well as what they call the Tipua system. Some of the concepts, a quick play example, and then GM tools. But this is essentially using Fate as the core basis and deviating, which does mean we're bringing back the Fate dice. Fate
Yay,
dice
fate dice.
are d6s technically, but not in practice. They are 6-sided dice that have 2 positive faces, 2 negative faces, and 2 blank faces. Positives and negatives cancel each other out. Blanks do nothing. You're rolling a set on a die and trying to get as many positives as possible. If you want to use standard 6-sided die, you can use the 5 and 6 as positive, 1 and 2 as negative, 3 and 4 as neutral. Though there are plenty of fate die rollers out there, um, including whole sites dedicated to that. And I know Roll20 has an option for fate dice if you want to take that route. I think um, Foundry has one as well. I would be shocked if it didn't. But a lot of familiar elements of fate are going to be present here. Aspects, stunts, fate points, stress and consequences, as well as invoking and compelling. Now, aspects and stunts are condensed into Ahe. They're, they are not created or invoked during play, and there are no compels. Instead, it's a once per session ability you can use. We kind of covered that when we looked at some of the abilities that the folks have, as well as the House of Learning. Um, Now, stress is split into physical, mental, and spiritual. I believe base Fate Core only has physical and mental stress. And Fate points are still here, but they can be used for either saving you from a fatal consequence, declaring a story detail, just like in Fate Core, or activating your ancestral ability. Which, if you recall, each weapon had that, and they can be very, very powerful and have a physical, mental, and spiritual version of that ability. But there are also a few fundamental concepts that they go into. The first one is tapu, which is said to be in a state of sacred focus. It signals heightened potential, where the seen and unseen converge. Each act of tapu demands utu, a balancing of energies or intent to maintain universal harmony. Throughout the game, you'll encounter the state of tapu. Some actions and locations will require your character to be tapu in order to interact. To enter this state, you can take an action called Wakatupu, which applies tapu to themselves or their party. Certain situations will automatically place your character in a state of it, such as entering a tapu area or interacting with a tapu object or weapon. In that case, you don't need to use the action, but must immediately make an utu roll. If you're still in a state of tapu when you end your turn, you must roll utu again. Some skills require your character to be tapu in order to use them. And while in that state, you can't heal. That's an interesting way to balance out being in that state. But Noah is to be in a neutral state. To be Noah is free of restriction, restored from tapu through intention or ritual. It allows for re-entry into daily life, collective space, or relational closeness. The act of Wakanoa rebalances Waira and can also be used to calm environments, dissolve tensions, or close sacred ceremonies. Just as you will encounter tapu, you will also need to return to a state of Noah. Some actions like healing, drinking potions can only be done while Noah. To enter this state, a player uses an action called Wakanoa, which applies Noah to themselves or their party. Eating or drinking will also automatically put you in that state. You cannot become Noah while in a Wahi Tapu, a sacred space such as a graveyard. And Utu is the spiritual law of equivalent exchange. It is not simply revenge or payment, it is balance. When you enter a state of tapu, use weaponry, or invoke arcane skills, you create imbalance. Utu is the response. If you are in a state of tapu, you must roll Utu. You roll a number of fate dice based on Tapu actions that turn. Plus 1 die for each action you took, up to 3 per turn. Plus 1 more if you used a Tapu reaction, even outside your turn. And plus 2 if you're still in Tapu at the end of your turn. Arcane powers use their own Utu scale. So a minor spell adds 2 dice, a moderate spell adds 4, a major spell adds 6. And to resolve Utu, you count the number of negative results on the fate die, subtract your mental fortitude, and any remainder is taken as stress. So we kind of have a game of
Interesting.
chicken set up here. Where you can go all out in Tapu, but doing so is going to pay a toll.
Hmm.
Uh, but Tikanga is the ways and practices to follow or enact Kawa, while Kawa is the protocol one has to follow within the context of the environment or situation. Uh, and essentially, it's kind of a code of behavior setup, though one that's more about cultural protocols than anything else, which would certainly be on point. Um, and then they go into Rauhri, which is a area that has been restricted or had prohibitions applied for safety reasons, often imposed in response to death, environmental stress, or Tapu breach.
Tapu's been breached.
Yep. If you interact with an area like that, you should be rolling a Utu cost each turn. It's a very nice way of saying you should not be here. uh, whereas Mana Akatinga is the process of showing respect, generosity, and care for others, upholding the mana of both guest and host and fostering kinship through action. Almost like a law of hospitality, I suppose.
Sounds about right.
Mm-hmm. Same thing with a culture of gift giving through Koha. Then they go into a bit of a gameplay summary. And it looks like much like a lot of Fate games, the baseline amount of Fate dice you're rolling is 4. You're just adding a flat modifier based on the skill. And when it comes to taking consequences, that happens if you take damage exceeding your stress. By default, you have 2 points in each stress track. If it exceeds more than that, then the overflow becomes a consequence. 2 points, a mild consequence. 4 points, a moderate, and 6 points, a severe. Also, I do like that they put a bit of a quick guide, though maybe that should have been closer to the back.
Yeah.
Oh, I do
Yeah.
like that they give a example of how one might use each of these skills. Some of them I think are going to be self-explanatory. Others, maybe a little less so.
I do appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. But after that, they go into a list of potential NPCs. The origin of Ngarara. And the last part is more on essentially a sample adventure.
Mm-hmm.
that is separated into three arcs.
I would love to actually go over this with somebody who is a lot more familiar with the culture and
Mhm.
pronunciations first and foremost. But yeah, like this is really interesting. It's a nice look into. So one thing I absolutely love about games like this is it's a nice look into culture.
Mhm.
And I love the theme of this. I love how everything looks. It's all very interesting.
Mhm. But it is it is it is clear that it's what it's built around. I do think that the the glossary we have at the end, and the fact that it's using a lot of Maori words that are either linked to proverbs or direct translations. Um, and I appreciate the translation that they give, but what I really think could help even more
Pronunciations.
is, yeah, pronunciation, because
Because I'm fairly certain those G's are supposed to be silent.
mhm, that there's also the fact that when you're dealing with certain languages, the rules on how vowels and consonants work change.
Yeah.
Uh,
So the only reason why I feel like that is NGA, I'm certain, is just a nga sound.
mhm.
Like bring a just nga. Because I have a coworker who has that at the end of her name, and we don't pronounce the G.
Yeah, it's like the very common name across parts of Asia, Nuyen, which you hear it, it sounds straightforward. You see it spelled for the first time, you don't know any better, and you're going to trip up.
Like I always thought is like Nwin, Nwin. Like there's a way to pronounce it for those who are familiar with the language, and you don't just read it outright. So
Hmm. Hell, I'm not going to say it here, but my actual last name is very straightforward when you look at it, but so many people assume that there's some complex way to say it and trip over themselves.
yeah, my actual first name, which does have Joe in it, people look at it and want to do some weird things to the J.
Hmm.
It's like, no, you just read it as it's spelled,
And
please.
there was a point in time where I was studying Elder and Younger Futhark, which is the primary language the primary languages. It's complicated when it comes to runes, and there are certain consonants that are common in English that in Old Norse just do not exist.
Fair enough.
Uh, like the soft C, is
Hmm.
any part where that would be is replaced with a K. That consonant doesn't exist. Uh, and because of that, I do not envy people who have to do translations, because on some level you kind of have to be a writer yourself in order to do it. Um,
Just a bit.
I have seen people go into great lengths about the things that get lost in translation when trying to translate, say, Kafka's Kafka's Metamorphosis into English. Because yes, German is one of the languages that's somewhat tied to modern English. Uh, but the way sentence structure works in German versus English is not the same. To the point where if you do try to do a straight translation of it, it's gonna look like a big run-on sentence. Uh, all this And I know some might go, well, that makes English sound like a terrible language. That is not the point. The point is there is shit in everyone's yard. As I've spoken about in the past, like how every romance language wants to give inanimate objects a gender. Or the fact that like I think German, French, and Italian have like 6 or 8 different versions of the, depending on who's saying it. Like the reason English became the trade language isn't because it's the best, it's because it's the most straightforward. The one with the least bullshit, but there is still bullshit.
Not
And
wrong.
I do think in general, I think pronounce whenever you're dealing with a setting that's out there, whether it be science fiction or fantasy, having pronunciation guides for in-universe terms, I think should be important. Now, if it's
Mhm.
something that's done for something where people are going to be speaking it, you only really need that for the voice actors. Uh, if it's in text form, yeah, have some pronunciation guides. But I really can't think of too many. There's only a couple of minor issues I can think with Tipua. One of them is I get what it's trying to do, but maybe providing a few story seeds to help get the ball rolling could help. Uh,
Mhm.
there are certainly some inconsistencies with the color setup in the text. Uh, that's, that can be fixed with an editing pass. But we need an index and we need bookmarks in the PDF.
Yeah. Yeah.
But overall, when it comes to when it comes to Challenger Deep, that would both that and Tipua, if I'm grading them on my metric, they're both getting a grade of recommended.
Yes.
I really wanted to go with strongly recommend for Tipua, but there's a couple things that put it at that almost greatness. Like it is dangerously close to it. A few tweaks here, and I'd be willing to bump it up to strongly recommended. Uh, but if if the devs four phase end up expanding further, I really think doing some measure of story seeds is going to be vital. When you're dealing with a more unorthodox universe, it's important to establish where the player characters are put in. You do kind of have that, but anything to avoid you all meet at a tavern or you all meet at the square on an island is going to be immensely valuable. But I'd say that is anything else that you had in mind for Tipua?
No, that's about it. Like you pretty much hit all of the points.
Mm-mm. Uh, so with that in mind, we will be we will be back here next week, delving into our next major season. Originally, the plan was to do the Elite Dangerous RPG, but then a surprise dropped on my lap, and I'm like, okay, we're pivoting. So we'll be covering the fan translation of the Armored Core 6 TTRPG, which I know some have said it doesn't have enough role-playing mechanics, which that phrase means absolutely nothing to me. But we will see what it has in store because I am doing my best to go into it as blind as possible. Not blind as in I haven't played AC6, obviously I have, and I I did recently grab the Frontier mod, which adds back weapons back into AC. But that should be a interesting thing to delve into. So until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.
Bye.